Welcome to another edition of the Aussie Ideas Man. I'm going to talk again, watching a recorded video by the cretin, the guessing man from APTERA Owners Club, the club with no owners. So I'll try to talk properly. It's difficult, but practice makes perfect. Maybe in 5 years' time I might have it. And of course, thanks to APTERA May Be Doomed video response. It's the source material, and it's, as I said, APTERA Owners Club is the owner of that particular video. And I'll just make my comments, and I do so because he won't allow me to type individual comments in his comments section. He doesn't think I'm good enough, but I think there's more to it. I think his reasons are made up. Anyway, we'll just see how I go.
Hello everyone, it's Steve with APTERA Owners Club. One of our channel members asked me to take a look at these two videos put out by a channel called Echo Electric. It's a small channel that does some APTERA content once in a while. And they recently put out two videos called APTERA May Be Doomed, kind of talking about some of the challenges that APTERA faces as a business and as a product. And he asked me to give my thoughts on it, so I thought it'd make a fairly interesting video. So I'm going to give you my thoughts on these two things. He notes basically 6 things that are a problem, or in his mind is a problem. Number 1 is this niche design and market acceptance. And basically he's saying that APTERA looks unusual and has a very niche market, and there may not be enough volume for APTERA to be a successful company. So I 100% agree with that.
This is what I like about the cretin. When he tries to discredit something, or at least give a response that is favourable to the APTERA cause, the first thing he has to do is 100% agree with the opposition's point of view. He's done it often. And once again, he starts by being on side with this thing that APTERA is doomed. 100% on side so far. Bit silly, but that's the way his mind works.
It is going to be, in my opinion, I believe it is a very niche product. If you look at APTERA's website, they seem to think that the potential market is up to 600,000 units per year. That seems wildly optimistic.
I won't comment right through this so that I can cut a lot of it out, but on this graph, it's a type of graph that they have here, it really doesn't matter about optimism, because his only argument he needs to say is that niche markets exist. And so being a niche market is no reason to say something is doomed. There's no validity in making the claim that because it's a niche market, it's doomed. So in a sense, you can agree that it's a niche market. But what he does now is shoot himself in the foot, if you were to watch it all, by saying that APTERA wildly overestimates the market anyway. And that is playing into the hands of the video that says, "Is APTERA doomed?"
I have no idea where they're getting these numbers from, really. I'm guessing that this is a true number for the total number of 2-passenger cars sold per year. It sort of makes sense. I think that the chances that APTERA sells 600,000 units a year is pretty unrealistic. It is a very unusual looking vehicle, and people are going to either love it like we do or hate it. And I have shown this to a lot of my friends, and most of them are like, I would not be caught dead in that thing. And they also feel like it's unsafe, and they feel like it's too small, this, that, and the other. There's many reasons that people won't buy it. And
so there's another addition to his arguments that really side with the premise that APTERA is doomed. You start saying all these things, you're on side with the other video.
This is just my best guess.
I'll stop there. Now, I'm cutting a lot of this out, but I've got to include this as my best guess, because this is the guesser of the century. The cretin is guessing everything. And why do you want to look up something that's supposed to disagree with APTERA being doomed and have the person provide statistics where all he can do is guess? As for me, being a niche market is irrelevant. Totally irrelevant. It can succeed as a niche market. I'm not arguing that point at all. What I'm saying is the point is irrelevant. It doesn't say that it's doomed. It doesn't say that it's going to be successful. It is nowhere. It is not an indicator of much at all. But what I'm saying is APTERA is doomed because the skin cooling is unproven, and until it's proven, it's not a workable system. It's not fit for purpose until it's proven. You can say it can have all sorts of things. If those things are a complete unknown, then you just, I'm trying to think of a word, you're just blowing smoke up where you're not supposed to blow smoke. So we'll move on. Niche market is irrelevant.
It is a niche market, and I think that is absolutely true. And I don't think that this is going to APTERA is going to become it's not going to sell like F-150 or even Toyota Camry type numbers. Okay, then he talks about limited range and practicality. The limited range didn't really make sense to me because APTERA has some of the highest range. Now he thought that the smaller battery that's used because APTERA is so efficient would lead to less climbing ability and less performance. Maybe doesn't understand that APTERA is very, very light as well.
Now, I don't know where he gets this limited range claim and turns it into climbing ability. I think he's got the NBC debacle on his mind, and it's come to the forefront. Limited range. EVs have limited range when compared to ICE cars. There's no doubt about it. In general, EVs have limited range. If we want to argue the point here, APTERA has an unknown range. We have never seen an APTERA go any more than about 3 miles, I think, at any one time, and then not without stopping a few times. What we have is completely limited knowledge of any range beyond 3 miles, and so that's all we can go by. We can't go by snake oil promises of 1,000 miles, and mathematics and the battery sizes that they're using prove that that's impossible anyway. But we can't go by them. It's snake oil. This 1,000 miles doesn't exist. The 600-mile model doesn't exist. The 400-mile model still doesn't exist. None have ever done it. Even the 250-mile model does not exist. So when we talk about limited range, we talk about what we've seen it do as opposed to what they claim it will do, because what they claim it will do are complete and utter lies.
Range of the APTERA is very, very good. If you look at the currently available full electric vehicles, the launch edition APTERA has 400-mile range, which is about 643 kilometers. That would put it right underneath the Lucid Air. So that would be right very near the top of all currently available EV ranges. And then even the 250-mile variant, which would be about 400 kilometers, would be higher than the average. The average, this little black line, is about 355. But the lowest range APTERA would be in the 400 range right here, which would be well above average. And then, of course, we're not even talking about the 600 and 1,000 mile range. Those would be way off the charts here, like way near the top. And performance will be good. Now, practicality.
Practicality. It's totally unconnected to limited range. When you're talking about practicality, you're talking about a lot of different aspects of the car, of which limited range is only one of them, one of many. So I don't see how these two things can be put one after the other as a single number 2. It's nonsensical. But anyway, when it comes to practicality, there are many aspects about the APTERA, both good and bad. There are some that are practical and there are some that are totally impractical, and too many to mention. If you watch all my 50 videos and 50 plus videos, you will be able to pick out the many instances where it is highly impractical.
Now, in terms of practicality, in terms of cargo space, it's pretty good. If you look at this ranking of EVs with the boot space, APTERA is about 25 square feet of cargo space. Okay, competitive landscape. This is where he talks about how there's established players.
I'll just go back even though I've stopped at competitive landscape, whatever that means. I'll go back to the fact that he's just used an example of the boot space as one of the practicalities of the car. He's actually selected one of the most highly impractical parts of the car, I should say aspects, and I'm calling it a car. It's a silly trike. It's not a car. And the other thing is, while he's slotting APTERA in the list of vehicles with boot space, keep in mind that APTERA doesn't exist. All those other vehicles on the list exist. You can walk into a showroom and buy them. You can't walk into a showroom and buy APTERA. So he's preempting it being in that list. It's not there because it doesn't exist. He's crossed the bridge before he's got to it. In any case, here's a bit about, just off the top of my head, the impracticality of APTERA's 25 square feet of boot area. Or trunk. Don't they call it trunk in America? We call it boot in Australia and England, but trunk space. Anyway, the impracticality of it is because that 25 square feet of area sits above one wheel. And every other real vehicle on the list, the trunk space sits only just above the axle between two wheels. And there's a massive difference. To sit above the axle between two wheels is a practical place to put a load, to put weight. To sit it on a flat platform above the top of a wheel that's in the middle is totally impractical. What happens is, if you have a slightly heavy item and you go around a corner and it moves to one side, it will drop the corner and lift the opposite front wheel off the ground, but it will drop the corner and break the back corner of your vehicle, the silly trike. If it's a fairly fast corner and a fairly heavy weight, then that's what's going to happen. You have to have it secured down in the centre and as far forward as possible, but right in the centre. That's the big problem. But the other impracticality of it is that if you have two heavy people in the vehicle, all of that boot space can only take something like foam rubber or boxes of potato chips, but they have to be light. If there's any weight in items, then you can't use that space. You will fill the load limit by weight before you've filled a quarter of the load limit by area. Okay, so now we're on to competitive landscape number 3. I'll have to listen to what he says because at the moment it escapes me.
And APTERA is a new player, and people may not be interested in a new player, and that's absolutely correct. But as Rivian has shown, you can break into established markets, and Tesla is now an established company, but when they were new, they broke into established markets. So if you have a compelling product, I don't think that is as big a problem.
Okay, and once again, this is where it's irrelevant. If you've got a niche market, instantly you don't have a competitive landscape. So here's a person, and it's not the cretin, it's the person who's probably equally as silly who made the original video. Here he is saying it's a niche market, and then he talks about competitors. Niche market is one that by definition doesn't have competitors or nothing to even worry about.
The other thing that they talked about is technological and manufacturing challenges. Now, this is a legitimate thing that is an issue. APTERA is trying to do many things that are very new and very different than conventional manufacturing of these vehicles. Number one, they're trying to do a carbon fiber composite shell that is also the structural unit of the vehicle, as well as the outer body of the vehicle. That really hasn't been done in a commercial passenger vehicle before. So that's
I believe that composite shells in commercial passenger vehicles has been done for a long time. I'm not so sure that he's correct there. I think of things like the Zeta Lightning in Australia. It was a commercial vehicle with a fiberglass body, and I think there are plenty more. The Gogo Mobile, things from Australia. He says 3 ways, and the first way I dispute it as true.
a kind of a new thing. And then the hub motors, that is also a completely new thing. And then the skin cooling is also a completely new thing. So
The hub motors were done more than 100 years ago, I think, or close to around 100 years ago. I'll dig up a photo of one. So that's been done before and way before. Nevertheless, there's 2 out of 3.
It seems like they have figured out those problems, that they're partnering with CPC and doing a good job with them. And CPC is very well versed in making these composite structures.
Yeah, so that sort of knocks it on the head with what he said before. He said that these composite structures haven't been done before. I think even they were advertising that the latest Lamborghini Countach was a CPC body. So there you go. He's making an argument that something hasn't been done before, and at the same time they're saying, look, they've already done the Lamborghini Countach body, and they've done it for Ferrari and McLaren and a few others. I remember these arguments. Why don't the gullible fanboys put 2 and 2 together and remember these arguments and just see that they don't gel, they don't add up? Claims of one thing and stack it against the claim of another not long before, and you see that somebody has to be lying somewhere along the way. Well, in this case, the cretin's lying. Composite bodies have been done before, and they've been saying that only weeks before the cretin makes this new claim. Well, the one missing so far is the skin cooling, and I'll grant that that is a new thing. And since it was introduced not long after 2006, has never worked. It is the one thing that makes me think that the company is a scam, because they have never proven this concept to work. It is, by my reckoning, reasonably impossible. There's too much wrong with having a belly pan that has to transmit heat out of wind blowing under it between it and a very hot road, and converting what cooling it has in it into the batteries and motors. There is not enough surface area to capture the cool. It simply doesn't work. I've always said that all of the 5 fake prototypes should be commandeered by the authorities when they claim that they've got not enough money to continue and fold. If that happens, commandeer the 5 fake prototypes before they can destroy them, and test them properly, and test that skin cooling. Test all the silly claims.
The skin cooling is the one thing that seemingly that they are doing on their own, and we do need to see kind of a proof of concept on that. I believe Noir, the Alpha Noir, had skin cooling, and that had a functional skin cooling. They did drag races with that thing.
Not only should they commandeer these 5 fake prototypes and test them for all of the fake performance claims that we're getting, if they don't come within the 5% that the computer fluid dynamics is claimed to be accurate, if they don't come within a bull's roar of those figures, then the authorities should begin to prosecute for false advertising. And not only that, they need to collect the total of money raised and then look at all the accounting to see where every cent went. Because we need to know that there hasn't been money siphoned off into brown paper bags, as the saying goes, or Cayman Island schemes, or Swiss banks, you name it. But money that's squirreled away in what is the essence of a Ponzi scheme. They could even go as far as to look at the finances from the first APTERA that folded as well. But I got a feeling that that was a successful Ponzi scheme, and the time was right to repeat the process.
The beta vehicle that is being shown here did not have skin cooling. It actually had a true radiator in the front. And the Gamma has skin cooling, but remember, they didn't hook it up to the motor, so the motor's overheated when going up the hill. Now they are making plans to hook it up to the motor and making videos and showing that.
I'll stop here on that making videos and showing, because only this morning APTERA Motors has sent a few second video of what is supposed to be Gamma going up a steep hill. They sent it to Chad from Drive the Lightning, and Chad has made a video to say here's proof that it's been fixed. It's been more than a month, and all we get is this video sent to one small YouTube influencer to prove that it's been fixed. Now, if you can't see through that, you can't see past your nose. It hasn't been fixed. It's just more snake oil.
It's going, up mountains and stuff like that. So that it remains to be proven publicly, but privately they've said that there's no problem with the skin cooling, but they do need to show proof of that. All right, the number 5 is evolving customer preferences. This is kind of a rehash of the first two things about practicality and niche market and stuff, and that's absolutely true. If you want a giant honking vehicle, this is not the thing. If you need to haul 5 people, this is not the thing. There is a niche market, and I think different people want the Aptera for different things. Some people want it because it's efficient. Some people want it because it looks different and cool. Some people want it because it's cheap and cost of ownership. Some people like it because they can be off the grid and be.
I'll stop here because I think he's missed the mark on this one. He's related it to the previous points or numbers, but I think evolving customer preferences is a little bit more specific and on a different track altogether. I think it's where society doing things like working more from home or wanting to take the bus or the train more often or doing those join a club where you can just pick up a car from any street corner when you need it sort of thing. Different ways for society to use transport and how it's changing like that. And I think Aptera is being sold to people as an individual vehicle, like the status quo has been for years and years, when the world is changing more so than just what type of vehicle do you want to buy, but you're buying a vehicle anyway. I think it's more that way, and I think he's missed the mark there.
And then the last thing they talk about is the finance problem. And I think this is probably the biggest hurdle that Aptera has. It's not the technology problem, it's not the market issues, it's the problem that every single startup has is that startups bleed money until they get into production and they start generating revenue. But there's a long period when they're doing development and marketing that they're just bleeding money, and that's what Aptera is doing. They're just bleeding money, and they're working on investments just like every other startup. And if they can't if they burn through money faster than they can raise it, and they run out of money before they can get to the revenue generating stage, they will be dead in the water, just like Sono Motors and possibly Canoe.
Okay, on this point, I come back to my idea that they have been manipulating their lack of money to the point where they're ready to fold, and it's the same excuse that they used the first time they folded. I believe even way back in 2021, they were saying we can produce inside of 9 months. We can produce very easily. And what they do is they then look for ways to go, now the car is more expensive, so now we need more money, and then put the production date back. And once they're getting close to saying, and they always say we can produce soon, so that they get the investors in. But once they get to that point, they then turn around and say, no, now we need more money. Now we need more time. More money, more time. More money, more time. And they've strung that along for nearly 4 years now. And all the while they're raising money, but at the same time, they have to find ways to squirrel away that money. So they make deals with suppliers, but they don't seem to get any supplies stockpiled at all. Deals with suppliers here, there, and everywhere, nothing stockpiled. I mean, they've been partnering with Alafi Motors, but anytime a gullible visitor to the factory show up, they don't ask, show me how many Alafi Motors you have waiting to build this silly trike. I had a suspicion that when Gamma was built, they actually took a few motors from some of the Alphas.
And lots of other startup EV companies. They're just, they're gonna. If you run out of money, you're in trouble. And that's why Aptera, is very focused on trying to raise money because without money, they die. And they just need to get enough money to get into production as fast as possible. And I've talked to several people at Aptera. Their number one priority is getting to production because they realize they don't get into production, they don't start generating revenue, they are going to die. And so they need to do that. And so the finance part of the whole thing is the part of the those videos that I found that I agree with the most. That is Aptera's biggest hurdle. And without good fundraising, Aptera will be doomed.
So his conclusion is, when I look at the arguments presented and then his comments, he's in pretty much a good-sized agreement with Aptera is doomed. That's the only conclusion a sensible person can make. He's made a video that gives his ideas about what's going on with the premise that APTERA is doomed, and he's agreed. In the main, he's agreed. He's had some slight differences of opinion, but they don't change the fact that in the main, he agrees APTERA is doomed. People who are looking to invest should take that conclusion to heart and know that anything that they put towards this is really going to disappear. Their money's never going to be seen again. I even have doubts this time around that pre-order deposits, will come back to anyone. But certainly investment money has no chance of going back. We had that Warren Redlich video that spelled out the fact that if anybody invests, they can expect to see nothing back.
They've been saying that they've been looking for enough money, which is about $50 million, to make it into production for well over a year now, and we still have not heard of any large investment that gets us to production. Last we had someone interview people just a few months ago at APTERA saying, do we have enough money for production? And they said they still don't have enough money for production. They have enough money to keep going and keep doing the engineering, and there's still engineering that can constantly be done before they go into production. And that's what the Accelerator has done. The Accelerator program has been very successful for them and has given them a long runway. So they're not in any business of running out of funds to stay solvent. But they currently don't have the money to go into production. And as I've said several times, I think their best chance of going into production is this ATVM loan.
The Accelerator Program was highly unethical. It kicked people in the teeth who had been loyal and invested and pre-ordered before this idea of a large money grab came along. It kicked them in the teeth, and they are unapologetic for it. And I think they're wasting their time. Well, I think that's what they want to do, actually, waste time. But they are wasting their time if they think they're going to get that loan. And if the American government that's administering that loan gives them the loan, then they've got rocks in their head. There is no chance they can make an EV with that skin cooling that will work. I give it no chance.
And that's probably their best chance at getting the funding necessary. I hope that they come up with some big funders soon, but I know that they've been looking. Whenever I've talked to them and whenever they've been asked, they say that there's been a lot of interest. Lots of people are receiving the pitch very well, but as it seems so far, it seems like no one's really pulled out the checkbook and written them the large check that they need. So yes, the finance aspect of it is going to be the biggest problem for APTERA. And we all need to hope that they get the ATVM loan, or they get several large investors or a single large investor that can put down the money that allows them to build at scale. APTERA probably needs to raise another $50 to $100 million before they can get into production, and that is their biggest problem. And I think everyone understands that. All right, so those are my thoughts.
Well, I think that'll do for me. I'll try to make a short video of it. My conclusion is we really didn't need that pretty poor video that said, "Is APTERA doomed?" I don't think they did a very good job of that. And then, even more so, we didn't need the cretin to confirm that APTERA is doomed. I think a lot of people are starting to realise it without any of this nonsense. Well, that'll do. That's all from me this time around, till somebody else makes a video that looks a bit that's only there to try and get what do they call it? A referral code. That's all from me. Bye for now. Till next time. Stay safe.